Imagine knowing exactly what your students are learning and exactly which steps you need to take next.
Join us in Down with the Reading Quiz to craft meaningful and productive formative assessments that move away from gotcha moments of basic recall and toward assessing what your students actually can do.
In this 30-minute free masterclass, we'll share 3 powerful assessment keys that work for any novel at any time of the year.
Head to shop.bravenewteaching.com/masterclass to sign up, and we'll also send you a free workbook to keep track of all your notes.
Once again, that's shop.bravenewteaching.com/masterclass to nail formative assessments forever.
Well, hello and welcome back to Brave New Teaching. Hi, Amanda.
Hello, Marie. It's so good to see your face.
You too. And I am recording actually from the mountains, which is a wonderful place to be when it is summer because it's not quite too hot the way it gets at my house. And it's just kind of nice and pretty. And it feels very camp-like for Camp B&T. Yeah.
Yes. We're having a nice cool down over here too. And it's a relief because, the hot is hotting, as they say.
Oh, yeah. No, it was triple digits last week, which I know is like, I'm not saying like, oh gosh, it's triple digits. Like, we're so unique. It's just like acknowledging, like, damn, it got like really hot. Like,
we have, I don't know if there's a term for it. There should be a term for it out here in the Midwest. Like, I feel like I suffer from like seasonal guilt. Right? Like we spend all winter like dying for summer. And then like all of a sudden summer's like too hot. So like we're still stuck inside. And I'm like, this is not, wait a second.
I think that's called global warming.
I mean, it's that.
I think that's what we're dealing with is that extremity of weather.
It's also that like I truly love like the in-between seasons so much when they're really doing what their job is. They haven't recently been doing their actual job. Like fall's been summering and spring's been wintering. And like, I'm a little off balance, but things are good today. We're both having a good weather day. So
we're having a great weather day. It's going to be great.
Yes.
And we're talking about another of our Camp B&T books, which is a good book. Oh my gosh, it's such a good book. Yes. We're talking about a middle grades book, but like spoiler alert, I don't think this is just for middle grades.
No, I think it is. Okay.
I mean, intended, yes. But like, I can see a bunch of my students being able to jam through. I'm excited to talk about the book. Okay. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. And I am too. And more about our Camp B&T, our bucket list and the things.
Oh, yes. Because I just love, all of the things. Yes.
So make sure you guys, if you are not you're like, what are these girls talking about? Head to bravenewteaching.com/camp so that you can download the bucket list we'll be talking about. And if you haven't already started yours, it is not too late to start your bucket list. It's never
too late. It doesn't even have to be summer, but we just happen to be doing ours during the summer because it's summer camp. Right. And today we are talking all about the middle grades book, The Night War by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley.
Yes. Did you listen or read it?
Read.
Oh, and I listened. So this should be fun conversation. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I read. It's good. Yes. All right, friends. It is time for us to get started. So I'm going to keep drinking my liquid IV. But first, we're going to cue the music.
You're listening to Brave New Teaching, and we are so much more than a podcast.
We give teachers the inspiration, support, and tools to challenge the status quo.
I'm Amanda, and I'm a former English teacher from Illinois.
And I'm Marie, and I'm a teacher from Southern California.
Join us at bravenewteaching.com to find out more about our courses, festivals, and get every episode's show notes.
We're so glad you're here. Enjoy the show. All right, let's start this discussion actually with our bucket list, shall we? Let's talk about what we're watching. Isn't that the part of the bucket list we wanted to do? Like what we are just binging this summer?
Lots of things, actually.
Okay.
Well, during the heat wave, we weren't doing as much outside time, and we really need to work on our we don't have very good seating in our backyard right now. Like our backyard is great for like playing and gardening, but our seating situation, like we don't spend a lot of time out there currently. So we've been watching a lot of TV. Okay. So Louise and I, we just plowed through season 2 of Outer Rim. I think I've talked about that on here.
I feel like you have too.
It's a stretch for us, even for me. All right, like I'm into like all kinds of things. Like I'm a non-judgmental, generally speaking, like TV watcher, and like I just kind of want something to get invested in.
Right.
That's like the bar. And we were really invested in season 1. So this is on Amazon Prime. Josh Brolin is executive producer, star, right? Thor, if you guys know. I mean, isn't he Thor? No, what is he? He's the god of something in Marvel. What is he?
Josh Brolin?
Not Brolin. Josh, what is his face? The big guy.
Are you thinking of Thanos?
Thanos. What's his name?
Thor is Chris Hemsworth. You cool?
Yeah, I know. Okay. But okay, Josh Brolin is right. Thanos, not Thor. Okay, those are really close. Also, don't know anything about any of that.
I'm judging you hard. This is not a judgment-free zone.
Just put it on your checklist of things to fix.
Got it.
When you see me.
Okay.
But it's like so like he, I think, is associated, at least in my experience, with very like masculine-esque, superhero-y kinds of things. And this is a Western sci-fi drama.
Ooh, that's kind of fun.
So basically, like the premise is, and I don't know if it's based on a book or anything, but the premise is like these guys own a ranch out in Wyoming, and on the land, this like giant hole has shown up. And right, fast forward through, like it is the whole of time, right? So when you fall through it, you fall through time travel. It's like time travel, Western Wyoming, like, right. All of the juxtaposition is happening.
Okay.
Also, lots of like, there's a really important storyline about Native Indigenous people and like the Native people of that area, modern day and in the past. Okay, so it's really interesting. But like sometimes like the conversations about the space-time continuum get a little like, woohoo, and like loose to kind of like check out. But like season 2 was this experience of like, okay, so season 1 I think ended in like 2021. We've been waiting forever. So it took 4 episodes to get through to remember like, oh yeah, maybe we should have rewatched season 1. We don't rewatch anything though. So like we were never going to, but like by the time we finally like got like back invested again, it was like only 8 episodes. And we're like, well, I mean, we're back in it, but now we have to go again. So, you know, which I feel like is a lot of people's sentiment. Well, not exactly that same sentiment, but that was the news about season 4 of Bridgerton too. It's going to be like 2 more years.
Yeah. I mean, those are a lot to produce. Like, I can't imagine that's, too easy.
We can talk about, I mean, of course, I have finished season 3 of Bridgerton maybe 4 times.
Yes. I watched it a few times myself.
Yeah. Do you have any?
It's easy to put on in the background when I'm like doing the dishes and housework and stuff.
Do you have any general Bridgerton thoughts? Because maybe the people need to know.
You know what? I liked it. There were some parts where I was like, we can pick up the pace a little bit here. But like, I want to see more of the friendship stuff between like Penelope and Eloise. Like I wanted to see that a little bit more even than anything else, just because they are the more interesting characters to me.
I feel like the Whistledown drama was overextended. Like it didn't need to be that dramatic.
I mean, like I get it, but yes, well, I agree. No, I agree with you. Yeah.
I think it was when they finally arrived at like these like cool conversations about like how Penelope is like trying to explain this is my power and like this is
it. This is all I get. Yeah.
Feminist lines I think got a little bit muddied and like because there's a lot of other things going on, but yeah.
No, it was a pretty convoluted storyline. Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, I liked it enough and it's beautiful. So I kept watching just like, pretty colors. Look at all the flowers.
It is beautiful.
I've been, talk about vapid stories. I've been watching Riverdale.
Never seen it.
I like used to watch it all the time. And then I stopped watching it for a while. And now I'm like catching up. And I am 100% like, I'll start watching an episode and be like, nope. And then I'll just skip to the next one. And then I'll go, nope. And then I'll skip to the next one until it's something that's actually interesting to me. And that's just kind of, I actually haven't been watching too much in the last couple of weeks. I have been doing a lot of listening. I've been listening to a lot of books. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. But I am determined this summer with my children to watch all the Star Wars movies.
Oh, fun.
Right? So Like my kids who say that they just, they're Jedis and blah, blah. And I'm like, right, but you've never seen A New Hope. So like, pretty sure your mom says, no, you can't pass that.
I haven't rewatched a Star Wars movie, like probably since high school. I loved Star Wars back in the day, but
yeah,
fallen by the wayside for sure.
Yeah. So that's what we're working on. Right? So obviously I'm putting together some themed snack ideas.
Yes.
Because like, what is a good movie night without a snack board and things to put in popcorn, right? Yeah. Those are the most important parts of my daily life right now.
Yes. Well done. I'm
really here for it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's dig into the Night War, shall we?
Yeah. What was I want to hear about you first, because the first thing you told me today was, I didn't know this.
I didn't. Okay. So I have a really hard time with getting myself started with books that are set in World War II. I do. And a part of it comes from I feel like all my knowledge of World War II was that Jews died. Like that was it. Like it was just like Nazis and extermination camps and Nazis and extermination camps. And we get hit so heavily with it from like, what is it, 6th grade forward?
At least, yeah.
That I was like, and I still have my gut reaction is reluctance to read things, even when I know, they are beautiful stories of like resistance and resilience and like faith and family and love. Absolutely. There just comes a certain point where like I personally can only do so much reading about people being exterminated. So it took me, I was reluctant. And once I finally got started, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Nazis. Okay, great. And I was so happy that didn't last that long. And that then the story gets going. And so basically I'm saying this because if there are some of you out there like me and I taught Night by Elie Wiesel for years and years and years, especially when I did 10th grade. It is absolutely a story that needs to be told. And other stories like this of genocide from around the world and throughout history need to be told. It's hard personally for me to get into it because this is a middle grades book. The violence is not particular. It's not like they're not shying away from violence, but she's not overt also. No. Because that's not really the focus of the book. The focus of the book is our main character, Miri. So like, I have more thoughts, but let's go with what you've got too. I love it. Like punchline, I love it.
I kept thinking about that as I was reading, and I was thinking about what kind of our job on the podcast has kind of evolved into. And I love this kind of position that we've been put in to do some of that. Vetting is the wrong word because we're not vetting, but we are
like pre-reading. Yeah.
Pre-reading, right? Like this is something that I never really had time to concentrate on when I was teaching.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're teaching, you're in it, right? Like being able to read other stories, right? Because part of what you're describing, I think, is this kind of narrative of trauma. I mean, we hit it hard all the time in all kinds of spaces, especially with World War II. That seems to definitely take, right, like a massive hit. And I think that for lack of a better, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think we just didn't have the energy to find other options.
Sure.
Even when you and I were teaching, like in our earlier years, it was kind of this, like you kind of just rely on what came before you. And it was Diary of Anne Frank. It was Night. It was, not that they're not wonderful, but like they are intensely painful stories, again, that need to be told, but we don't have a lot of balance. And so I was excited for Night War because I was anticipating something different, right? Like that's got to be the mission. If you're a YA author right now or a middle grades author, I can't imagine your goal is to tell the same story again. And it definitely wasn't.
In the same way, right? Yeah, no, it's to highlight new voices and to highlight nuanced perspectives. Yeah.
And I loved it. I loved that we were in France. I think that for me, that was new. And I kind of talked about that in our kickoff episode. Yeah. That I was excited to like physically be somewhere other than we were not in an extermination camp, right? We were in France and kind of this, and that's kind of what I like about Book Thief too, is like you kind of are pulled out into these other, because I think we lose that too, right? If we keep teaching the same story, kids are stuck there. So I love this. And I think what I really loved about the story, when you read it, is actually What I normally can't stand about middle grade is just like, I have a really hard time with that age of actual human children. And it's going to be very interesting when that's my real life. But the conversations that were had amongst the girls, I think we probably should give
the
a little
characters.
Bit more
Yeah.
But like when the girls are revealing to each other how little they understand about Jews, about the war, about Germans, about Nazis, about like the world around them, and how like their beliefs are being solidified, even though they have no life experience. That is such a brilliant and important conversation that can be left out if we're only looking at the trauma, right? Is the belief systems of the people who let it happen. And that to me was really surprising for a middle grade book and really well done. I thought it was executed beautifully.
I did too. And there's a great, like the word that you said before, balance of characters and perspectives and questions being asked and things being purposefully not said by this trio of girls who find themselves. So basically, I mean, I'll just read the little book jacket thingy.
Yeah.
It's 1942 and 12-year-old Miriam, who is Jewish, is not safe. With help and quick thinking, Miri is saved from the roundup that takes her entire Jewish neighborhood. She escapes Paris, landing in a small French village where the spires of the famous Chateau de Chenonceau rise high into the sky. Its bridge across the river Cher, like a promise, a fairy tale, but Miri's life is no fairy tale. Her parents are gone, maybe alive, maybe not. When she's taken in at the boarding school near the chateau, Miri must pretend to be Catholic to escape Nazi capture. One night, she is called upon to undertake a deadly task, one that spans the castle grounds, its bridge, and the very border to freedom. Here is her chance to escape to find her parents, but will she take it? One thing is certain, the person Miri meets that night will save her life, and the person Miri becomes that night could save the lives of many more.
Yes, and that's exactly.
And so, yes, so in this convent where she's taken in, this school, she has two other girls who are her age. And yeah, just the things that they reveal about themselves, both through what they do say and what they don't say, shows me specifically, because I have not a ton of experience with this age of kid as well. Like I've said many times on the podcast and otherwise. And it reminded me just how layered they truly are. Like, I know that small kids are layered, and I know that big kids are layered, and the middle kids, I just kind of, I don't experience that much. And so I thought that was a nice little window into like their experience.
Okay, so if we want to take a little bird walk, okay, which, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I can promise little. This is going to sound crazy, and this is going to be also why you're like, yeah, okay, Amanda does have a very bizarre set of skills, like Liam Neeson style. I can't murder anybody. Okay, but here it is. I read The Night War and watched Inside Out 2 within the same week.
Oh.
And I had this beautiful, like, for me, like, this is how my classroom would work. I don't know if anyone else is feeling this, but like, I think to blend those two, these stories to me overlap, because what I see in The Night War is how belief systems are formed, how identities are formed. And I think it was so cool, again, like, not to do a Holocaust unit with this book. We don't have to only teach historical fiction within the historical context, right? Like, you could teach I Must Betray You in a dystopian unit. You could teach, right? And that's part of like the creative brainstorming power of what we try to teach in curriculum rehab, is like, when you put a book with a question, not that you want to like ignore the context, but like you can have a different conversation. Like, I want to talk in this book about how these like experiences, memories, and beliefs are formed for each of these girls, and talk about identity, because this is not like, I think what the risk we run sometimes with doing like keeping things inside a Holocaust unit is it becomes an other experience.
Right.
Isabel Wilkerson talks a lot about this in her book Cast. And I think that that's the idea, right? Is like, we create that distance, and then it feels like, that's not me. Like, that's so extreme. That would never happen. Like, careful.
Well, I think that that's what happens when we talk about atrocities on this same scale that span the globe and that span history, is that they become part of a genocide unit, or they become part of a war crimes. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not that that gives it any less weight. It just allows us as the people teaching and learning them to distance ourselves because it others exactly what you're saying, right? Yes. I remember reading that in Cast as well. And it's like, oh, that's what it is. Like, it just like labeled it so perfectly. Like, yeah, that's what this is. And that's also what happens oftentimes when people ignore what's happening in the world right here, right now, right? Like current events, what is happening in various parts of just our whole world is just a mess. And a lot of it is because we're able to distance and other ourselves from it.
But I think that that's exactly what kind of our calling is to create spaces for kids to wrestle with this stuff and like to not other it. And
yeah.
I mean, I can see this working so well in an identity unit, in a coming of age unit. Like, I don't know. I think that that to me was the power of this story, was the fact that her courage and bravery. There's also a really cool thread with a ghost. So there's a little bit of supernatural in this book that's really beautiful, like, and supernatural in a way that like, right, it's part of like her coping and healing mechanism, right? Like this is, you know, the loss of a parent. Like I think it universalizes, it doesn't diminish, but it universalizes a lot of the experiences of grief and loss. And
it's a gathering. It's like an open arms gathering connection kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yes. And it was really beautiful. The pace was good. I think it moved along well.
I agree.
I don't have enough experience with the younger grades to see if I would do a whole class novel or it would be like a book club book. But I mean,
I don't know either. I'm about to like force this upon my 11-year-old because like, he loves historical fiction. He loves, so he's gonna absolutely love it, but I don't know either. I mean, probably an all class. I feel like the thing with like Number the Stars or Diary of Anne Frank is that, which I'm just naming like comparable texts that are widely used in classrooms. They're short. They're much shorter. This one
was long. I think it was like 9 hours I listened to it.
It is 274 pages.
Mm-hmm.
But I did read like 200 in one sitting.
Yeah.
So there's that. Like it does go fast, like you were saying. Because of the history involved and because of so much context that's needed, it would probably serve very well as an all-class novel. I would include it in a, maybe even honestly 10th grade unit where we had something to anchor us all that is a really complex text that we're doing all together, and then have like a smattering of like this, especially for some of my more reluctant readers, along with a lot of other world perspective novels and different stories as choice or something to do as parallel, because I really like the idea of doing two things at once. But when they are two things that are really complex, it's too much for kids. Like I can read 3 books at a time and be perfectly fine, but even I get a little confused sometimes and have to like pause. And so I think it's got a lot of potential.
Yeah.
It's also really well written. Like I was like, I like these characters.
Yes. Yeah. I did like them very much.
Like I like these kids. Yeah.
There were genuine moments that I had, and I talked about this a lot when we talked to Diana Lopez about her book last year at camp. If you guys have not listened to that episode or read anything from Diana Lopez, her series is growing since we last talked to her. But I had the same kind of reactions here with these characters. Like I actually felt, and I say actually just because, I don't know, I've got a bad attitude about middle grade books that I'm trying to change. But I watched this main character and I felt her grief. I felt her anguish, especially with her little sister. And like, there were a couple scenes that I was like really choking back, like really trying to like, wow, it was really powerful. I thought it was impressive. Yes.
Yeah. And then the French nerd in me loved all of the like Catherine de Medici and like Diane de Poitiers, like the history that they were talking about in this little town.
Well, she changed her name to Marie, so you know.
She became. Parce que moi, je m'appelle Marie.
It was very, very good. I think that's my review. It was very, very good. Is that helpful to everyone?
Yes, it was so good.
That's how I feel about books when I finish them. People ask me, it was so good. And they're like, well, why? And I'm like,
it was
the vibes
because of all the good stuff.
If I do the same thing. The podcast, I really don't retain anything. Even today, I had to like go back and like take some notes so that I could remember the things. Like, it's just bad.
I mean, I think that the most impactful piece, if we really like were to distill it all down, the most impactful thing for me is that it is a story about war that is focused on resilience and joy.
Yeah, it is. And friendship.
And friendship. That's what like it's focused on resilience, joy, and like retaining power through choices, even when it's impossible, right? Like that was the human spirit piece of it that I thought was really beautiful. So,
and definitely
I highly recommend.
The dominant part of the narrative too. It wasn't like eventually we got there after time. It was really the focus. I mean, she was going through all kinds of stuff the whole book, but I mean, really,
from the very beginning, like one of the adults in her life who she loves dearly says, you have to choose. This is not a choice I'm giving you. What you just said is not one of the choices you have. This is your choice. This or this. Not what you keep saying. This or this. And I felt like that was talk about a great conversation piece. Having a budding middle schooler. Yeah, there's a lot of that conversation. I mean, just very practically not having to do with war and being on the precipice of like violence, but just like, no, that's literally not what I just said. Whatever's in your head is not what's happening in reality right now. This is what your choice is. So I felt like that rang true even just on like a this is how they act level. So
I think that's what keeps bringing me back to like coming of age and identity. If you feel like you've been having the same conversation about those things forever, this might be a cool way for you to zoom out and like refocus. Like for me, like I want to get kids to the point where when we talk about coming of age, they can recognize the difference between childhood and adulthood and like what role like choice plays in that, what role, right, responsibility plays in that, and how much of it is not even under their control. And there are definitely ways of looking at that from like a 2000s coming of age in the suburbs.
Yeah.
All that contains, there's a whole nother like 1940s France being rounded up by the Nazis version of what that looks like. And so I think it would be really interesting to like have another way of looking at how that experience can be for all kinds of situations.
Agreed. Yes, I would like to see even more perspectives of different wars and different genocides and which I can't believe I'm saying because it's so sad.
Speaking of which, we are reading currently The Rose Code for my book club. So I'm like double down in World War II, but this one is, I believe, is it young adult? I don't know, but it's about the code breakers, the women who.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
And I'm appreciating, again, like a totally another like role that was happening in the background that doesn't get told very often. So I'm enjoying that part of it too.
Very cool. Well, friends, if you are reading along with us this summer or have maybe already read some of the things that we have talked about, let us know. Reach out. We want to hear some of your thoughts, or if you have other ideas of books that could go nicely in like a choice kind of situation, grouping, pairing with The Night War based on what you've heard us talk about here, please let us know, because we're always looking for more suggestions to give out to you all, our audience, and just for ourselves. And keep up with your bucket list, friends, or get started today. Like Amanda said, head to the show notes or head to bravenewteaching.com/camp and download your little summer bucket list for free. Even if you're like starting school again, just be like, remember all the things I did this summer, and like maybe use it as a reflection piece. Yeah. So and hang out with us on Instagram because we are doing ours as well.
Yay.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you very, very much for joining us today. We have had a lovely time, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks again for listening to Brave New Teaching.
We'd love to keep the conversation going over on Instagram.
And while you're there, check out the links in our bio for the most up-to-date events going on in the Brave New Teaching community.
Thanks for being here, and have a great week at school.